Welcome to the aDrop.ai podcast. We are recording live on Twitter Spaces. Joining me, your host, Chef Dizzy. We have Gravy, friend, alpha tester, and leader of the the Professor DGen community. We have with us our CEO, DeFi Seer, aka Thomas, a fantastic font of knowledge in the realm of airdrops. Also, Graham, advisor, artist, and also alpha tester. We'll be hearing from him. Perhaps joining us will be also Alex Stanton, our COO. And yeah, we're going to be talking about airdrops. So thanks for joining us, guys. I don't know if you want to give a little introduction and say just a little bit about yourself. I think it's good for the listeners to know who they're talking with. I can start. I'm Chef Dizzy, longtime crypto native, circa 2016. I just joined the aDrop company about a month ago. I'm an investor and also the community manager, and I am so excited for this product. It's given me so much knowledge and experience in the realm of airdrops, and I'm excited to share it all with you guys.
Awesome. I'm happy to go next. I'm Thomas. Thanks for hosting us today, Chef. Always appreciate it. Um, so I first got into the crypto space in about 2016. I was living in South Africa, and I was doing a little work abroad program there, and I noticed it was the first time I actually noticed and experienced inflation. And while I was there, I started speaking to people about how they defended themselves with inflation, regarding inflation, and the different types of assets that they would invest in. And a couple of the different things that came up were naturally real estate, but also there were people speaking about Bitcoin. And it was pretty early days at that time, so I thought it was really fascinating. I started looking into the crypto space deeper, and I was just so fascinated with the technology. I have a background in fintech, so it was really something that bridged a lot of my interests. And since then, I've just been diving in head first, working at a few different crypto companies, and really experimenting with all of the different dApps and DeFi applications that have come out over the last, I guess, like close to a decade now. Wow, crazy, 2016, that long ago. But yeah, and airdrops were one of those things that kind of just naturally gravitated towards me because I was experimenting so much, and then I started trying to figure out how the puzzle pieces of how people actually get these airdrops, how they're distributed, and how and like what the earning potential was. And over the last 2 3 years, that earning potential has really grown into like a real financial asset class. And that's one of the reasons why aDrop.ai was born and created, because this is a new financial asset class that will only grow over the next decade. Because every company that comes into crypto and into the blockchain space at some point needs to decentralize. And the best tool for decentralization is going through an airdrop process. And this is even further proven by some of the topics of conversations from the regulatory standpoint in the US, where they're talking about the ways that companies can decentralize and be considered commodities, and airdrops are one of the best ways to get there. So it's a very, very underserved asset class right now, and we think that we're on the forefront of bringing this to many, many people around the world. So yeah, happy to be here. Excited for this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Thomas. That's great. Graham, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, hope you're all well. It's a lovely evening to be chatting to you all. So, yeah, very glad to be here. Similar to Thomas, I started kicking about in this sandbox around about 2016. Back then, I was a younger artist, somewhat political, kind of leaning towards the anarchist side of things. I was like, I don't need no government. And then, I had friends that were like, well, funny you should say that because there's this new money that doesn't need governments either, and that was very interesting for obvious reasons. The journey started with Ethereum, actually, even before Bitcoin, and it just kind of grew from there. So over time, I've done the degen thing. I've bought silly random NFTs. I've made NFTs. I've created artwork in the space. I've made money and lost money, and I've done all of the things in between. But it's been a wonderful roller coaster to be on that journey, learning about it all, hopefully gaining wisdom along the way. And now here I am with you guys, getting to share sort of the next roller coaster ride, which is going to be this kind of bull run that has or hasn't started, but is probably going to keep on going for a little while longer yet, and bring with it many, many, many wonderful opportunities. So yeah, excited to get talking about it.
Wonderful intro, Graham. Thank you. It sounds like you've definitely been around for a while and walked the length and breadth of the crypto space. And yeah, I appreciate you having here. You always sound so eloquent. And Gravy, my friend, welcome to the stage. You want to tell us about yourself and some of your expertise and what you're doing these days?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on, Chef. I just want to say first, Thomas, every time I hear you give an intro, I always find something else really cool and interesting about your background and history. It's pretty cool that you got to do that in South Africa. I think South Africa or South America, but either way, really cool. So I'm Gravy. I got into crypto heavily about in 2021. I remember reading about Bitcoin in 2009 in my first job in the break room, and reading how it went from I don't know the exact dates and exact numbers, but like $7 to like $90, and thinking like, well, I missed that boat. And then in 2018, I started to get a little bit involved and bought a little bit of crypto here or there that ended up funding my when I started getting more involved in 2021. When it like the blockchain really clicked and like what it does and what it's for, right around when smart contracts started to become a big thing with NFTs. So that's when I really started to dive in, and just been learning ever since, and trying to understand like where we are in the Web3 world at like right now and where it's going, and trying to navigate that and connect the dots for people, and also provide value to our community by educating and onboarding them to different protocols where they can learn and make money.
Awesome. And Gravy has a community, and many of them have been joining us as alpha testers in the last week or so. And so we've been really grateful to have them on. So Gravy, it's really good to have you. The first thing I want to talk about is the topic of this podcast, right? Airdrops. One of the most common things that I encounter when talking to, I guess, regular people about airdrops is the what and the why. So I'm curious if any of you guys want to take a stab at, how would you explain an airdrop to somebody who's never heard of one before, in the what and the why? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. So what an airdrop is, and for people that have never heard of them before, an airdrop is basically a reward that is distributed out to early users of platforms. So that's what an airdrop is from the perspective of somebody who's using the platform and somebody who receives an airdrop. But what an airdrop is to the protocol that's distributing it is a way to decentralize the ownership and the governance of that protocol to many different people, and to start forming the community that's going to push that protocol forward in the future. These protocols that I'm referring to can be anything from an application that's built on the blockchain, or from a blockchain itself, or social media community. It can be in a lot of different forms, but that's essentially what an airdrop is, and why they happen is to decentralize and share the economic benefit of that ecosystem with a community of people.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Go ahead, Graham.
Yeah, I think the decentralization aspect is super intrinsic and important to this. Obviously, not every company airdrops in a way that is like fully decentralized or really like sort of advantageous to its users. But I tend to think of this as energy. Like, let's say you've got a big community of people all living in the same area, and they do a thing. Maybe it's a mining town. We don't know. A traditional structure would be that you've got a power plant in the corner of this town, and that power plant serves everyone in the community. But it's owned by the mining company, and so you're kind of beholden to the whims of that mining company. You don't really get much of a say in this. Decentralization is that idea of spreading the energy. So a lot of these protocols, the energy that powers these protocols is the crypto that is underneath it. Ether is the perfect example. Without that Ether token, the network doesn't exist. And so you're really giving permission to people not only to help govern and dictate how a company or a project kind of evolves over time, but you're also saying to them, we're going to trust you with the fuel that runs this community. And by giving everyone sort of like a little package of energy, of fuel to kind of look after and potentially benefit from, it's an act of trust and it's an act of community. It's a really lovely way to say you are as equal and as important to us as perhaps even our bigger investors. It's a really new and interesting model in that respect, and I think super cool to see it happening.
Excellent. Gravy, do you want to weigh in?
Absolutely. Those were both great responses. So I'll keep mine short. So what an airdrop is to me is a reward or a payment for users to test or onboard to a protocol or adapt. And the why is it varies based on what the utility of the token is. So for a governance, it's to distribute it evenly. Like Thomas said, that was a great explanation. There's other ways for like other things like Wolf Game, for example. They gave you 1,000 wool. That was for you to spend in the cave game to experiment with different items. So they give you, there's usually like a different reason for every airdrop. Gaming tokens have a different one from governance. But other than that, usually there's a goal in getting it in the right hands. And I think that's where social farming went a little wrong, is they got it in the hands of the wrong people. They should have gotten it in the hands of gamers if they're a gaming project versus just random social farmers. But to me, that is what it is all about, is onboarding users and getting them to experiment with your protocol.
A lot of really great answers here. I mean, mostly what I'm hearing is it's about user participation and a way to reward users who are in that process of participation. And it sounds like there can be a number of different reasons for that. I'm still stuck on like the why. It's interesting to me why companies would want to distribute so many tokens to people engaging with their ecosystems. And I think that what it comes down to is we're in an attention economy in a lot of ways, and people want to bring more and more customers into their fold, and in order to acquire those customers, they will participate in an airdrop or perform an airdrop. And for me, it's been really interesting because it seems like this is a way for the average crypto person to gain, to acquire a stake in tokens, and not through trading. It's a different format. It's through participation. And there is some cost associated with that, but that's, to me, is the most intriguing part. And Gravy, you had mentioned social farming. For anybody who doesn't know what social farming is, can you explain that a little bit? It was all the rage in the last month or two, but it seems to have died down quite a bit. Maybe perhaps because of Twitter's new announcement on limiting engagement farming type posts. But I'm just curious. You want to go into that just a bit?
Yeah, that Twitter announcement by Elon was a shot in the leg, but I think overall a big thing that was missing from a lot of these social farming projects was liquidity at the TGE. So a lot of these projects jumped on the meta. It started with Portal, and Portal paid a lot of influencers $300K per account, and a lot of them had 2, sometimes 3 accounts and made a lot of money. And they passed that message on to the communities. So when Block and Gaiman and a couple other ones came around, Param actually just did their did their claim today, and it was like, like garbage for like people who spent 20, 30 hours farming and got like $2 an hour. Just not a great return. But I think a big thing that failed was, one, there wasn't liquidity for the tokens at launch. So when people got the tokens, there wasn't any investment, there wasn't a pre-sale or anything to provide the people to dump the token on. And then two is projects realized that the attention they were gaining wasn't always positive attention. Like the term farming in general became negative, and we quickly shifted. I mean, we switched from a while ago, but we wanted to switch even before that because we saw that this was going to die out quickly and wanted to shift to stuff like aDrop's doing, where we're more protocol farming. So that's my I think that was a big thing. So liquidity was like the big one, and then two, just the results of what they were producing just wasn't correct with what their goals were.
Right on, right on. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think also the social farming, which was essentially tweeting with a tag, a cash tag for the coin, and engagement. It was all based off of like engagement on social media, and so if you were tapped into any of those networks, it made your feed kind of exhaustingly repetitive and full, and that's why I think social farming wouldn't have lasted very long even if Elon hadn't made that announcement, especially because, um, yeah, I started muting accounts that were doing that. And I'm sure a lot of other people were. Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to make a slight like differentiation between positive social farming and negative social farming and how it relates to DeFi farming. And I think that the positives of social farming is that it helps products teams or apps get out there and market themselves without having to have a VC back them or some large investment into the product. I think the negative is that there's a lot of people who see the advantages of taking advantage of groups of people and promising them some token drop without any actual value embedded into that token. And the difference between that and DeFi farming or protocol farming is that there's actually a product in that situation built a lot of the time. There's actually a team behind it that's planning on building something bigger. And you have the opportunity to, and you're only rewarded not by just pushing a promise of a product in the future, but actually by using a product that exists. So it's a step further than a lot of the social farming. But social farming, there's also very, very productive ways of doing it and productive companies that have used that process for good. But there were just a lot of people who took advantage of what they saw in what was going on there to promote crap, basically. So that's kind of the way that people should be weary of some of the social farming tokens that exist.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Um, so we've talked a little bit about, airdrops generally. We've learned what they are and why people give them out, but I want to know a little bit more about your experiences. What was like the biggest airdrop you've ever gotten? I'm curious. Did that spark your interest, or were you already like deep in the airdrop trenches? If anybody's got any cool stories, I'd love to hear them. I can go first. The first airdrop I ever got was the Bored Ape Yacht Club ApeCoin airdrop, and that was kind of at a crazy time, and I think it was a rather unique situation. But essentially, they gave a token allocation to every holder of their NFT. I had a mutant ape. I didn't have a proper Bored Ape, but at that time, that airdrop was worth, I think, something like $10,000 or $12,000. I sold half of it. I made a big come up, and foolishly, I bought back in as it was coming back down. And so overall, I didn't make a ton off of that. Well, I did make a ton, but not as much as I could have off of that airdrop. But that experience really got me hooked and showed me, the power of, being in the right place at the right time, being exposed to the right ecosystems. And so yeah, that really kind of piqued my interest. And anybody else have some interesting stories?
Yeah, I'm happy to say mine, but I just want to interject quickly and say that um, I just got a notification. We all know that the ETFs were approved, but the specific ETFs that were approved. Um, oh, actually, maybe this isn't breaking news. Okay, I was excited there for a second. I thought they were going to say that they were going to release the Frank Templeton ETF first or something like that. My bad. Okay, but my first, my largest or best airdrop was the Arbitrum airdrop that happened in the whew, it feels like a long time ago, but maybe it wasn't as long as I think. Early 2023, I believe. So kind of in the midst, like the deeper area of the bear market. Nothing was really doing well, but they did a really, really good job of dropping in a no hype area. They dropped and distributed the tokens in a way that almost everybody who's distributing airdrops today mimics in terms of their qualification criteria. Um, and the way that I stumbled upon this was literally from a game. I was playing in the Magic ecosystem at that time for most of the bull run in 2021, 2022. Magic, they had some really, really cool games called Small World and I don't remember what the other one was called. It was like an on-chain DeFi type of game, Legion or something like that. And I was playing both of those a lot. They were pretty fun, and I ended up accruing a lot of on-chain transactions through those. And then I also just really love the Arbitrum ecosystem as like one of the early layer twos that introduced a lot of cool DeFi apps and had really, really good lending protocols. And eventually that led to an airdrop, and I was like shocked about how much I had earned from using that protocol because I had a lot of fun using it, and I started diving really, really deep into airdrops and how everything works from that standpoint from that point on.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I didn't really get into the Arbitrum. I wasn't paying attention or exposed to it at that time. But I really think I missed out. Graham, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got two rough answers to this. I'll start with the first one, which is way cooler, but it didn't happen to me. So this is us all vicariously living through someone else that I happened to know at the time. But I worked with a guy who was really early in the crypto scene in general. And around 2014, 2015, perhaps even a bit earlier, he was mining an absolute ton of Litecoin. My background was in film and TV, so we all had fairly beefy computers, and he was just using his desktop to kind of mine Litecoin on the side. But he started getting involved in some of the very, very early murmurings of the Ethereum ecosystem, helping them kind of, a little bit of advice here, some rendering power over there, just odds and ends. But eventually he got airdropped some ether as like an early adopter kind of benefit, almost like as an advisor. And at the time, it was not very much. Like this was when ether was probably like less than like 50 cents per eth. But obviously we know what happened, and the amount that he got dropped just for helping them out eventually meant that he could retire early, which wonderful for him. He now lives somewhere in the Mediterranean, soaking up all of the sun and drinking very, very nice drinks. So that was really, really cool, and it showed me the potential of this ecosystem to kind of really, create meaningful change in your life. And the thing that really struck me about it was he didn't get airdropped necessarily this ether just for like, being like a fanboy. He was genuinely helping, and I think that kind of spoke to a deeper thing, which is the second part I wanted to mention. I was massive into the crowdfunding scene. As an artist, independent artists a lot of the time weren't making huge amounts of money, and then things like GoFundMe and Kickstarter and all this stuff came along, and you could kind of maybe make a comic or a short film or something, an art book, and get it out into the world, and you'd have the means to generate the funds to make it through lots and lots of small donations rather than one big investor or like a publisher. And obviously underneath this, we're talking about like money, but money is sort of really just an extension of time, effort, money, energy. They're all kind of roughly the same thing in the real world, like how much energy you put into something can be measured in money terms or in kilowatts. There's some sort of transference there. And so I really love the idea with airdrops that it's kind of like an extension of crowdfunding in the way, but what you're investing in these projects isn't money per se. You're not investing like your literal dollars. You're investing attention and time and energy into these things. And I think as a means of currency, how you give up your life to different projects is as valuable to me, I think, as money as money can be. And then you get rewarded for it. You get rewarded for giving your attention and your time to things that you think are meaningful and worthy. So yeah, it's a wonderful place to be.
Love it. Deep thoughts, deep feelings. Exactly what I would expect from the artist you are, Graham. Gravy, do you have an experience to share?
Can you give me can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, just what was the biggest airdrop that you've ever received? I know you've been doing this for a while. I'm curious what your biggest score was.
Ooh, that's a good question. I think ENS was probably my biggest one. I think that was like three ETH maybe. I could have been more. I know some people got like twice, three times as much as me, and I was days late on getting like a lot more because I registered a bunch of ENS after like October or November 1st, whenever the cutoff was, and they didn't announce it, and then like a month later. But ENS was big. Yeah, I'll stick with that.
All right, right on. Right on. Yeah, I also got some ENS, but it wasn't a very big bag. It was just a couple $100, but still enough to make a difference in my wallet for sure. And I still have those tokens there. So I guess this is a good time to just say thank you everybody for joining us. This is the aDrop.ai podcast live on Twitter Spaces. Joining me on stage is Gravy, Thomas, and Graham. We were having a wonderful discussion about airdrops, and thank you all for joining us. If you wouldn't mind liking, commenting, retweeting the space, so we can get as much exposure as possible, that would be absolutely fantastic. Next, I want to ask Thomas, maybe he can tell us a little bit more about like the criteria that airdrops are looking at when they're trying to decide who is eligible for these things. I think there's a lot of mystery behind that, and most listeners would benefit from, like what are the contact points that we're looking for here, and why do they matter?
This space was downloaded via spacesdown.com. Visit to download your spaces today.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the best way to approach this and think about this is put yourselves in the company's shoes that is going to be administering the airdrop. What do they want to see from their uh, community, and what benefits the game or that ecosystem the most? If we're speaking about a blockchain, which to this point has been the majority of high value airdrops, blockchains want to see dApps or applications built on their chain, and they want to see people using those applications on their chain. So one of the top criteria that you can check off your list is interacting with many different applications on a blockchain. The next thing they would want to see is how much money is actually being transferred on top of that blockchain on any given day, week, month, year. So transaction volume is another really, really big important criteria for a lot of these blockchain airdrops. Um, Additionally, they want to also see value locked on the chain. So leaving money or leaving tokens on top of these chains is extremely important as well. And then coming back every day, every week, every month, that's another criteria that's extremely important. So those are more of the general criteria that a blockchain specific airdrop would be looking for. And then every blockchain has their own specifications. Some are more focused on social media growth. Some are more focused on developer growth. So they'll add in these sprinkles of other criteria methods, like we saw with StarkNet, was very focused on their developer ecosystem. And then we see with Blast, they're very focused on this gamification component where they're trying to get people to use as many different apps as much as they can with as much money as they can, all in a very, very fast amount of time. So they're awarding points and awarding points to their ecosystem. So there's different ways to play this game and play the approach. And I think we're just seeing the very, very early stage right now. Everybody's experimenting, everybody's learning how to do it. But at the end of the day, the fundamentals are always going to be the same. Think about what these applications or blockchains are looking for in terms of what their goals are, and try to achieve those goals as a user. And those will most likely be the ways that will be the wallets they distribute the airdrops to in the end of the day. Does that answer your
Awesome.
question?
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to keep prompting you a little bit further, since you're so good at speaking on it, how does that, relate to aDrop.ai? How are we helping users get the most out of these interactions?
For sure. So there's a couple of airdrops are a very new space. They've only really started being a thing in 2020. So we're about 4 years into this right now, and there have been a couple of different companies and apps built to help people figure out how to earn airdrops, what to look for, and all of those guides have been extremely helpful. And they do give people tips on what to do on chain, off chain, in order to award or in order to earn these airdrops. One of the biggest issues with a lot of these tools, though, is that the volume component and the repetitive component of actually getting on there, grinding, getting 90 to 100 transactions on a specific chain or app takes so much time that you have to dedicate all of your time doing this to probably one or two apps. What we do is we reduce that amount of time, um, while still providing you all of the qualification criteria that you need in order to qualify for these airdrops, but by giving you a power tool. So instead of using a screwdriver, you're now using a power screwdriver or something better. That's a bad example, but you know what I mean. And you're able to then commit the amount of transactions on chain and interact with the amount of apps at 99% reduced time. So you're basically reducing the amount of time you need to interact on chain by 99%, and you're able to do 10x the amount of interactions that you would previously. So it's a power tool for on-chain interactions.
I love that. It certainly is a power tool. I've been using it extensively myself, and I think this might be a great time to hear from some of you guys about your experiences using the app and what it's like. And for any listeners tuning in, uh, while supplies last, if you go to demo.aDrop.ai, you can still sign up for the alpha as an alpha tester. I do believe we will be closing it soon. The beta is set to launch in redacted. No, I think it's going to come at the end of next month. I don't want to put a specific date on it, but we will be closing the alpha soon. But if you go to demo.aDrop.ai, you can still sign up easily and check it out. We really appreciate our alpha testers and all the feedback that we get. But I want to talk a little bit about my experience. You know, I'm not somebody who has gotten a ton of airdrops, and even though I'm crypto native, I'm still very hesitant to interact with a lot of different ecosystems. I'm always really conservative with my interactions, and I do remain pretty skeptical about a lot of the new things that I see coming up for one reason or another. Either I'm not sure if they're completely safe, or I'm not sure that if it's worth my time. And lastly, many times it's just confusing what you have to do to participate with whatever's going on. So enter aDrop.ai. The very first time I opened up the app, I was amazed at the simplicity and ease of use. And this is even before, the sleek, sexy UI has been released with the beta. In front of me were 12 different airdrop campaigns. All I needed to do was click on one, and before me were an array of quests. And by completing these quests, I was essentially walked through a large variety of interactions, sometimes as many as 6 or 7, 8 or 9, from swapping to bridging to lending to redeeming, and all in this kind of seamless loop that meant that my funds came back to where they started in the beginning, and that was base chain. So right now we're using base chain for a lot of the layer 2 level of interactions. It's cheap, it's fast, it's really efficient, and yeah, I've really been enjoying my experience so far. Um, I started just using, like 0.25 ETH. I think we recommend our users, Thomas, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we recommend our users use between 100 and 1,000 or $2,000 worth of coin at once. And it's non-custodial. It never leaves your wallet. Okay. This is just the amount of, currency you're using at one time. Yeah, I was using like 0.25 in the beginning, and I was getting really great results. In just a couple weeks, I'd racked up a couple tens of thousands of dollars in volume on certain chains. But to really test how things were going, I started using a couple ETH, about 3 ETH, and in the last 2 weeks, the amount of on-chain volume I've generated is pretty staggering, and it's spread across a bunch of different apps, a bunch of different ecosystems, and so I personally am really looking forward to seeing what kind of airdrops I'm able to qualify for later on down the line. Um, so yeah, but that's been my experience. Sorry to talk on for so long. I'm excited about it. But Gravy, Tom, Graham, I know you guys use the app daily as well. Can you tell me what you like about it, and what it's like for you?
Yeah, I mean, where to start? Obviously, the excitement that you're giving over here is like palpable, and also as a user, completely understandable. It's hard because obviously, like, you don't want to be too biased, but by the same token, I'm actually absolutely loving it. I think it's had a dual impact on me, and it's very paradoxical. On one side, it's made me totally lazy. Like, you know, in the past, as Thomas was mentioned, you had all these like weird and wonderful guides that would like link you to like 10 different websites, and you'd be clicking around and kind of always trying to keep on top of where everything was all at once. And it was just a mess, as much as these people were trying to curate your experience, it was still just overwhelming. And that's even as a crypto nerd. Imagine if I was like my grandma and I was trying to make a few bob here and there. Like, there's not a hope in hell that I would have got anywhere with that. So in one respect, it's made me lazy because now there is this tool that just like you click a few buttons and hey presto, I have now generated a bunch of volume on this chain, and I can see how that pairs up against like kind of like some basic criterias. So like I can see like I've got like 4 points on this chain, which means I'm possibly eligible for like a small airdrop on this chain. And it's like a game. You can kind of just see your progress as you go along and like level up over time. Anyone who's played RPGs, they'll know exactly that kind of feeling where you just like leveling up your equipment and like seeing these stats just grow and grow. So it's super addictive and very, very easy to use. So yeah, on one side it's made me lazy, but on the other side it's actually kind of weirdly made me proactive as well, because all of a sudden I am interacting with a bunch of stuff that has been curated by aDrop, that's been found, discovered, vetted, looked at and trusted. And now I'm sort of dabbling in ecosystems that genuinely I probably wouldn't have even bothered to look at in the past. And it's opening doors. Like one of the tasks is with Orbiter, which is a bridge and swapping platform. And suddenly, like outside of aDrop, I'm seeing, well, there's like bonus tasks I can do on Orbiter now as well. And it's an app that genuinely I just don't think I would have used unless I'd been kind of led by the hand towards it. So it's kind of both proactive and lazy at the same time. I mean, I loved Thomas's attempt at a metaphor there with like power tools and screwdrivers. It was beautiful to listen to. For me, like I'm going to attempt a metaphor as well. Let's see who can come up with the daftest and most stupid. For me, airdrop hunting was like bread. You know, like as a carb delivery system, it's pretty damn good, but it's kind of boring unless you're in France, and you know it makes you feel sleepy. aDrop is like beer. It's a way more effective carb delivery system. You feel fun while you're doing it, and it makes you brave enough to go out there and try new things. So that's my weird little metaphor.
I think that's a great metaphor. Although I like bread a lot, you know, I can't say that beer's way more fun than bread as a baker. You know, I think a really great sourdough can be very enriching, just as much as a nice dark beer. But I totally get what you're saying. Goes down smooth, goes down easy, refreshing. You know,
Bread built civilization. Man. Bread built civilization. Bread and beer built civilization. Modern civilization. That's it. We've got to respect it. It's up there with bread and beer is before money.
That's Ben, another alpha tester. Welcome to the stage, sir. He's running a little late today, but yes, that's right, Ben. Bread and beer have kept civilization going along for a couple millennia now, and I think that we can trust in them to keep it going for a little bit further.
Yeah, it's kept me nice and fat as well, which has always helps everybody. So,
Of course. Yo, Thomas, did you were you raising your hand? Did you want to say something?
Um, think I after Ben's joke right there, I think I lost what I was trying to say. Come back to me. Come back to me. I'll think about it.
Sure. Gravy. The question is, what has your experience been alpha testing the app so far? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? You know, what do you see the possibilities here?
I absolutely love it. I think Graham's. Did you say Gravy? Yeah. Graham, I stole a lot of my responses, but I think for me, like a lot of it's visibility, trust. So like visibility, you can see like all your assets and all your wallets right away. Sure, there's apps out there that show you all your wallet holdings, but having that just handy right there as you're doing the kind of like the bridging and swapping and stuff is really, really helpful. And like even just like me finding like $30 in Polygon and Matic that I forgot I had, right? Like I just added that to my whole swapping thing, and I just kind of I added it on. So I did that. That was awesome. So visibility, and then trust, like Graham said, like knowing that you guys have picked these specific ones. I think with my community specifically is they don't know where to go a lot of times. So like having kind of this broad platform where they can go and just toggle through different things, it saves our community leaders a lot of time from having to prep stuff to onboard people to stuff like ZK Sync and Linnea. I think I'm not sure how to say that, but it saves us a lot of time from having to do stuff like that. So having that is awesome, and then just the time saver as well. So that's probably my last piece is the amount of time and how quickly you can go through things. I would say it's even faster than just going direct. Like if you were going to do a ZK Sync swap, it's faster to just do it on aDrop's website than it is to do the actual ZK swap, even if you know what to do. So those things have been all very, very positive experiences, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what else aDrop expands to, and like kind of the beta phase and things are going to be rolling out then.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Gravy. And I think really the goal of our platform is to bring transactions on that have a purpose, so that as you're going through these uh, daily, weekly quests, every transaction you do has been put there for a purpose, so you can be confident that you're not running blind throughout this entire process of trying to qualify for an airdrop, and it's a bit faster. And instead of having to jump to a bunch of different URLs and different web pages, they're all in one place. So I think that's a really, really good point. And it's also great to hear, Graham, what you said, because I think Rashid would be really, really happy. By the way, Rashid's our CMO, and he always talks about I think it's 7 points of contact that marketing needs to have with a customer before that customer actually starts diving in somewhere. And what we bring is we don't bring people directly to apps. We help make it easier for them to interact and trust apps, but then eventually that increases their relationship and trust with that app at the end of the day. And that's a really great thing that you brought to the table there, Graham. And last thing I'd like to say too is just we're all talking about the alpha here, but the alpha is just a functionality release. You know, there isn't a gamified point system with a purpose. There isn't weekly rotating quests that are coming in with new reasons every single week. There isn't the entire vision of what this app is going to be in here. It's really just to show that we're changing the game by making it easier to interact on chain, but get ready for the beta because it's going to be an entirely different experience.
Love that. Super excited for that. Um, can you tell me a little bit more about like the quests and how much can things change from week to week when farming something like Linnea, for example?
Well, I did see Graham's hand up, so I'll let him take it after this, but I'll just quickly answer that. Um, so they can change massively. I mean, just doing one line of quests with 2 or 3 different applications is not enough to qualify. I mean, it could be enough to qualify for some airdrops for sure. If you transact in high enough volume and you do enough things, it's definitely enough. But in order to ensure that you're doing everything you can to really put yourself above all the other people that are interacting on chain, uh, every week there are going to be little nuances, little details that come out, like um, anywhere from specific quests that blockchain released or new applications uh, that have grown by 50% over the past week in terms of users, or locking your tokens into a specific chain for a week, to a specific app for a week's time, and then coming back next week and removing that and moving it somewhere else on the chain. All of these things are extremely important to diversifying your interactions and really making you stand out as like you are a power user now. If you're doing those things, you are above the 1%. You are doing so much more than anybody else is doing. So there's a lot of small little things that by just coming back every week and changing a little bit where your funds, even if you only have uh, 50 to 150 dollars worth of funds on a specific chain, there are things that you can do to qualify for an airdrop. Maybe it's a bit smaller than somebody who has 15,000, but it's still something. And that's really what we're going to work with. We're going to work with people who have funds from all different sizes and give them the opportunity to qualify. It's not a guarantee. There's nothing that's guaranteed in this space for sure. But we do want to give people a leg up from that standpoint.
Appreciate that, Thomas. Very wise words. Very important things to say. Graham, sorry I didn't see your hand up before. Go ahead.
Can't believe it. Can't believe I was just trodden on, walked over. Nah, it's all good. Yeah, Thomas made a really interesting point there earlier about like some of the vision behind what even just in this alpha environment is going on, about how all of these quests aren't just, wishy-washy quests that you're just doing to click a button. They're like really thought out. And I think the example is if you go and use it, you can see how some of the quests start to kind of overlap with each other. So, for example, there is a dedicated quest line for SyncSwap, which is a swapping and bridging platform that's on some of the Ethereum layer 2s. But there's also a quest line for ZK Sync and Linnea. And you can start to see how some of these quests overlap. So it's like, even by just doing one quest line, you're sort of building your credibility up in another quest line vicariously as well by interacting with these different apps. And you can just see in that sense like how it's like this really intricate web that's been put together that like really is like so self-informed. And I absolutely love that. And that kind of speaks to Thomas's second point as well. Like you can imagine as this grows, like when the beta comes out and aDrop starts like really like onboarding like a lot more users, we're hearing the feedback already at this point, how good the user experience is. So it's only a matter of time, I think. You see on chain already that there are little things that happen every other week. So, for example, I brought up Orbiter earlier. There's a kind of partner program on Orbiter right now where there's a couple of little airdrops here and there with their partners that are time sensitive. Maybe it's just for 2 or 3 weeks. But if you interact with the chain in that specific way, it will amplify and increase your chances for an Orbiter airdrop because you're earning Orbiter points. Same thing on Linnea. There is now a new system where you can earn Linnea points just by interacting with their pre-vetted apps. And they've made it very clear in their documentation which ones those are. So you can then start to integrate those into those weekly quests. And again, they're going to be time sensitive. So there's always going to be little nuances and little differences from week to week as to how you can really maximize your opportunities. I think it's going to be a really, really fun time. Anyways, I see other hands. I will shush.
Go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, I think it would be really interesting for somebody who's a bit of a crypto noob to have a go at the app. Obviously, myself and all the rest of the boys that all made up are very much, nowhere near crypto experts and wouldn't even come close to. No, I've learned more obviously doing these sessions, but it'd be interesting to see how user friendly it was to a complete crypto noob. That's all I wanted to put.
Yeah, well, I mean, how does it sound to you?
It sounds great. It's just the way you word stuff is obviously a lot simpler than there's a lot of jargon, isn't there? Of overcomplicated words. I think sometimes it can be a bit isolating sometimes in crypto because everyone uses a lot of different sort of jargon and different words for the same thing, whereas you guys seem to be simplifying the whole process.
I appreciate that. I wonder if it'd be worth creating some kind of resource on our website where we kind of break down a lot of that jargon because I think you're right. And we do want to make this all absolutely as accessible as possible, not just for crypto natives, but for all our friends and family, across all sectors. I think that that is definitely a huge part of aDrop.ai that excites me is that I see my mom using this. I see my uncle using this, different people who have asked me how they can get involved, but I don't want them to trade on my advice or on my opinion because that's scary and that always winds up wrong. So this is a really great way for them to, gain a lot of exposure, gain a lot of experience, and be walked through every step of the way with security and safety and the understanding that none of this stuff is going to be malicious or drain your wallet. Again, I want to reiterate that aDrop.ai, as of right now, has no download associated with it. It's completely non-custodial, so you are in control of your funds at every moment, every step of the way. We are simply helping you swap between chains, bridge to different places. You will have probably a lot of chains added to your wallet after you've used our app for a while. But I think that's a really cool thing, and it makes me feel like I have a lot more experience now. So we will be wrapping up shortly. We've been going for almost an hour now, and I want to thank everybody for listening.
Chef, can I just
Yeah,
say one more thing?
of course, of course.
So regarding that point, also Ben, that this is something that's 100% in our roadmap. We right now, the biggest barrier to entry for somebody who's not a crypto native to using our app is spinning up a wallet. That is the biggest barrier to entry, I think, for most people in general using crypto. But once they spin up a wallet, they don't really know what to do or where to go or how to do anything, and it all gets very intimidating. What we are going to do in the future in the roadmap is going to be anybody can sign up simply with a social media or email address login. A wallet, if they don't have one, will be spun up for them. That wallet can be self-custody, will be self-custody so you will have control of that wallet, but you won't have to worry about it. Once these smart wallets start coming out at the end of this year, there are a lot of tools that are going to support that, and you basically can just use the app like anybody else. So there is a real future here where anybody will be able to use this without having to spin up a Web3 wallet. And I'm really excited for that moment, and we're probably going to be there in the next 4 to 6 months, is what I'm thinking. And last point, just about the alpha. Anybody who's using the alpha, I just do want to. We've all been speaking really positively about everything that we've done there, and I'm very proud of it and excited. But I do want to say, like, this is not the final or full vision at all of aDrop.ai, and in order to, while using our app in general doesn't guarantee any qualification for airdrops. We haven't built this specific alpha to qualify people for airdrops as an isolated party. The beta will be geared much more towards that with these daily, weekly quests that I was speaking about. But the alpha is just for functionality purposes. So while it does help you increase your on-chain volume and interact with different applications, it is still important to, at this point until the beta comes out, do your own research and just make sure that you're doing other things that are necessary that might not be included in the alpha in order to qualify. I just wanted to let everyone know that because I don't want anyone to think that using the alpha alone will be the only qualification tool. Because I mean, we don't know that, it could be, but just wanted to make that public. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate the transparency, Thomas. I really do. It's especially now as a lot of these newer projects are having like point systems, and sometimes there's a couple more complicated steps you might need to take. Definitely, you always have to DYOR, do your own research. If you're interacting with a project, through the alpha, take a look at their Twitter, take a look at their website. There may be a couple of the things that you need to do right now. Of course, once the beta launches, that won't really be an issue anymore. And all you'll need to do is access through the app, and you'll have every tool and every edge one could imagine. Graham, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I love Thomas's ability to just be completely open, transparent, and honest about where things are, where things are going, and just letting people understand exactly what stage we're in. But I also don't want things to be underplayed here. Like as things go, I think most people can intuitively tell when they've stumbled upon something good, whether you're in any way related to this project or even just someone who is completely new to it. I've shared this with friends in the past, and I've had the same feedback from people who have nothing to do with aDrop as well. So I mean, I don't want to downplay how good this thing is either. It may just be a demonstration of the functionality right now, but even just as a demonstration, if that's where it starts, I cannot wait to see where it ends. It's going to be sick.
Absolutely appreciate that, Graham. I totally mirror your excitement. And I wish I could keep everybody forever in here. I do have more fun and interesting things to talk about. We'll have to save it for next time, though, because I want to be respectful of everybody's time. And again, we are recording this live for our podcast, the aDrop.ai podcast. It's going to be coming out on Google and, well, I guess not Google anymore, but Android and Apple and anywhere else you can download a podcast. And we'll be taking good snippets from these live sessions and repurposing them for the people who might not have caught it. So thank you all so much for listening in. I'm Chef Dizzy. I'm the person running the aDrop Twitter account. I'm really grateful for any interactions that you guys share with me. I'm grateful for comments and likes, and I'm especially grateful for you sharing your time, which is the most valuable thing of all. I promise to give you your time back. If you use this app, you will save dozens of hours over the course of using the app, and hopefully make really big gains. And I'm really excited about what we're making here. And thank you all for joining us. We will see you next time live on Twitter, Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And catch you later. Take care. Bye.